No, oh my god, don't even tempt. He's made something on the Back to the Future ride. I'm gonna be watching fucking Defunctland all night at this point. Back to the Future ride was my favorite ride until it was gone, and then it switched to Men in Black. Back to the Future ride was such a fucking banger. Last Defunctland, and I swear to God, this ride was so good. Oh, it was so good. And I was just a huge fan of the movies anyway. So this had a special place in my boners.
Great Scott. My name is Kevin
Thanks
Perger,
to
and welcome to another
Arcfang.
edition in Defunctland.
And the bit's clumsy and
For
squidsy.
background/context on this series, please visit thepurge.com with the link below.
You know, Andrew
Before we
that
get
makes
started
those
with this
videos is the
episode,
one
I have a couple of
that's
things
in the
to
videos
say
we make at the
slash
warehouse,
announce.
Squidsy, right?
First, no
Of course I've
voice
seen them.
modulator. I've been trying to perfect this for the last 10 or so videos, and apparently I was just making
Yeah, I
it
guess
worse.
not,
So while this
Makoto.
voice seems unnaturally high to me, hopefully you like it better.
Thanks to Resub
Also, we
Chimkey.
have a subreddit now. Please go subscribe to it so we can have
The
post-episode
Prime Cute.
discussions, more suggestions, and we can find more people to visit Defunctland. I will also be placing polls here from time to time, the first of which is for what we will name the land that Pretzel Dark Rides and Superstar Limo are currently in. If I find that a majority of you prefer Facebook, I might make a Facebook group, but I'm trying out the subreddit first. Alright, enough of me, back to Defunctland.
Thanks to Tier
Today,
1 Star
we will be
King.
attempting to resurrect Universal Studios' extinct attraction, Back to the Future: The Ride.
So good.
This attraction was at Universal
So
Studios
good.
Florida from 1991 to 2007.
You sit in a DeLorean and it
Universal
fucking
Studios
bumps and
Hollywood
moves
from
around, and
1993
Doc
to
Brown's like,
2007,
holy shit,
Universal Studios
we're
Japan
traveling through
from
time!
2001 to 2016. The ride was
then
suggested
you're
by
6 years old and you're going, oh my
Adrian
god!
Alfie Davies, Beav Bennett,
God, it was good.
Chris Perez, Dave the Wave 007, Dean C., Dr. Doofus, Doug Jackson, Harper 414, Kelton Lynn.
Alright, holy
Ricky
shit, we don't need
JC.
the whole credits
The
here.
Future Ride opened in 1991.
Let's run
The
it.
idea dates back all the way to 1986, where Peter Alexander and Steven Spielberg met at the Universal Studios backlot the day before the King Kong encounter with
Thanks to
Dave
Resub
on the
MILF
tram tour.
and
Spielberg told Alexander of a
Chuckin, and
conversation
they give some
he had
pillow.
with Lucas while riding Disneyland's Star Tours attraction. Lucas told Spielberg that he was impressed with Disney's ride, and that he thought Universal couldn't ever match it. Spielberg took this as a challenge, and asked Alexander to adapt the Back to the Future trilogy that he produced into a ride. The idea of a Back to the Future roller coaster had been thrown around but never developed,
Wow.
because Universal's creative team realized that the coaster would move too fast to tell the story effectively. However, the idea of a Star Tour style
Easy Tier 1 Blake and
simulator
give
would
sub,
solve this
Resub
issue.
King and give sub
With the
Pasta
approval
Boy.
of Universal, Peter Alexander and his team began production on a Back to the Future simulator. Boss Film Studios, headed by Academy Award-winning visual effects artist Richard Edlund, was hired
Richard, my
He
man!
worked
Thanks for
on
Back to the
project
Future,
with
big
artist
guy.
Greg McGillivray, who created this concept art for the ride dome. Alexander, Edlund, and their crews would periodically rent an empty Omnimax theater in Vancouver, left over from the 1986 World's Fair, to test the demo films Edlund's crew were creating. They even built a mock ride vehicle to experience the film with the motion effects.
Oh
Boss
god,
Film
the
supposedly
nostalgia's
spent
coming
a year in
on.
this production process,
Oh
but they were not
boy.
involved in the creation of the final
Woo.
ride film, and there are two theories as to why. One, which comes from Jim Hill Media again, claims that the plan was to open the Universal Studios Hollywood attraction at the same time as the Universal Studios Orlando version. Both parks would use some of their budget to fund the ride film, but somewhere during the construction of the Universal Studios Hollywood version of the ride, the foundation became off by 6 feet, which means that the joint construction contract between the two parks wouldn't work out. Universal Studios Florida went about rehiring the original contractors when Douglas Trumbull, another famous special effects supervisor, and his company Entertainment Design Workshop put in a lower bid than Boss Films. Universal then supposedly chose Trumbull over Edlund. The other theory
Thanks to
is
Tier
that
1
Edlund's
Sleek
demo
Ack.
films were not good. Producer and screenwriter of the Back to the Future trilogy, Bob Gale, apparently claimed that it was absolutely terrible, because instead of an original story like the one that we got in the attraction, Edlund's film was essentially a flyover of the pre-existing story and sets from the movies. It was also said that Edlund's film had a weird fixation on blimps, and many different styles of blimps were supposed to fly around.
That's a weird fetish.
At some point, whether it be
I'll make the
Edlund's
Back to the
film or
Future
an
ride,
early
but only
version
if we can have
of
blimps.
Doc Brown was to have an
I
evil
like
twin
blimps.
brother that would serve as the antagonist, an idea that was changed in order to have a stronger connection to the movies with Biff. Regardless of why Edlund's film never came to fruition, the
Thanks to
move
Tier
to
1
Trumbull
Angel,
might have been a
Resub
good
Scarpo,
idea,
and Brown.
because the ensuing ride film was fun, exciting, and technologically impressive. The 4-minute ride film was shot on 70mm film and was to be projected on an 80-foot diameter Omnimax dome screen. Omnimax is a type of IMAX theater that displays film shot with a wide fisheye lens.
I always
It's
thought that was
typically
going to be the
used in
future of
museums
movies
and
growing
science
up.
centers, but Universal would use this technology to immerse riders in
It
the
clearly
ride.
wasn't. In
Many
fact,
of
it's
the
pretty
creators
dead,
of the
I
film
think.
appeared in it either as an Institute scientist or a security guard. The DeLoreans would of course be hydraulically powered and programmed to move with the film.
Is it
an
Tier
effect
1
that Universal
SciX?
expected to cause motion sickness among many visitors, which actually didn't happen. Riders instead became incredibly thirsty after the ride, which Universal solved by adding water fountains near the exits.
God damn
In
it.
the end, Universal had constructed
Fuck.
the largest ride simulator ever created.
It's so cool!
Universal MCA began promoting
It was such a
Back to
good
the Future
ride.
in 1989 through the Back to the Future trilogy's anniversary publications, but the ride film wouldn't be completed until 1990. By now, I think we all should know the disaster that was the opening of Universal Studios Florida.
I wouldn't call it a
And MCA
disaster.
wanted to
Bill
avoid this
Cosby was
with Back to
there,
the Future,
and
so
he's
the
never had
attraction's
anything go
January
wrong.
1991 opening would be pushed back to May to avoid another
This
embarrassing
is a Tier 1
opening.
cipher.
The attraction did begin technical rehearsals in the early months of 1991, and 600,000 people had already tested the ride before its official opening date of May 2nd, 1991. And this was another star-studded premiere for Universal Studios Florida, but this time it wouldn't be embarrassing, because the ride worked perfectly.
Yeah, and it's
the original
cool.
actors and crew of Back to the Future were thoroughly impressed by the ride, and so were the visitors. Universal Studios Florida had been struggling to match Disney MGM Studios at this time, and Back to the Future caused a surge in summer
Ooh, it's a good
attendance.
MCA
MCA claimed that they had topped Disney for the
exercise
season
needle.
in attendance, even though a
Thanks
lot
to
of
the
their
bitch, Jay.
visitors had free passes due to the technical failings of the past year. Regardless, the Back to the Future attraction, that took nearly 5 years from concept to completion and $40 million to make, had salvaged Universal Studios Florida.
Movies have
It was so good, too.
Supernatural to the
Son
limitless
of a
ocean
bitch.
of outer space. Even earthbound exploration makes a quantum leap in time in the 1990 release Back to the Future.
No more Defunctland after this one. The last one.
Hello, anybody home? Huh? What are you looking at, butthead? Wait a second.
What do you mean no one reacted that way? Every time he said that, I had a big hearty giggle in the line.
Now that you're here, time travel volunteers, I can give you your pre-flight briefing. There's a lot you'll need to know if you're to successfully cross the space.
My god, I'm getting hit with super hard nostalgia. Jesus, Doc.
Anything could
I'm traveling back in time? Ah!
Hasta la bye-bye!
I rode this so many times. I'd make my parents just do circles. We'd do the ride once, get right back in line, run it again. Do that 3 or 4 times. I love this ride.
Brown's Wonder Car and enter a new dimension for the most awesome ride
Holy
of our
shit.
lives.
The Back to the Future ride was the most staffed ride at Universal Studios, requiring 35 employees to guide
Thanks
guests
for
to the
resub, Kid
cars,
Meth.
buckle them up, and ensure the ride went smoothly. However, the ride was very simple to start, and took just the push of a button. Guests wait outside the Institute of Future
don't really have good
Technology,
motivation for your problem,
watching
but just
video
think,
of the
what would
Back to
Doc
the
Brown
Future
do?
trilogy, as well as the new footage of Doc Brown with other scientists and his other inventions. Once inside the Institute, it is explained to them that they would be volunteers in one of Doc Brown's time travel experiments. They were also informed that Biff, who had escaped from 1955 in Doc Brown's DeLorean, is somewhere in the space-time continuum. Doc shows images of his new 8-passenger convertible
gift sub,
time
Jay.
machine, a way to explain the ride's
Yeah, we've
cars.
watched pretty much all
Biff
of
appears
BattleBots.
unbeknownst to Doc, asking the guests where the time machine is. Then, Heather, a receptionist at the Institute and the same actress that played Spike in Back to the Future Part 2, tells guests to stand
Oh,
by
interesting.
for
I never
an offer
noticed
from
that.
Doc, who has been locked in his office by
But
Biff.
then again, I'm not like a
Biff
Back to the
steals
Future
DeLorean
lore
and
expert
sets
either,
off into the
to be fair.
space-time continuum.
Just like the ride a
Doc
lot
explains that he
in the
needs
movies.
the guests to travel to 88 miles per hour and bump Biff's DeLorean, which would open a time vortex that would send them back to the Institute. Guests are given some safety instructions before being guided into their DeLoreans. Once the doors close, the DeLorean hovers, speeds up to 88 miles per
Oh,
hour,
man.
and leaves the Institute. The Omnimax Dome created an incredible.
I hope he plays the
convincing
entire
illusion,
video.
and the DeLorean had
It's so
exceptionally
good.
jerky movements to sell it as well. The experience seemed as though the individual guests' cars were alone, but this belief would be broken if guests simply turned their heads to the left or right. They would see 3 other cars. There were actually
Yeah, but nobody
24
did that.
cars,
It was like
12 in
Knight's
each of the
Honor.
ride's 2 domes.
Don't
There were
ruin
3
it.
tiers of DeLoreans, 4 per step, so each had the best possible view of the Omnimax screen. Also, the 2 separate domes ensured that the ride would never completely shut down. Doc and Biff frequently appear on the DeLorean screen as the 2 cars fly through time, visiting 2015 Hill Valley, and oh look, it's a styrofoam cup left on the model table. They then crash into the clock tower and visit the
Well,
Ice
you
Age,
ruined the ride
the
for me. I hate it
Cretaceous
now.
period, where they encounter a dinosaur and a lava fall. Biff loses control of his DeLorean and begs Doc to help him. The guests are able to successfully sending both back to the Institute, where Biff is taken by security. Doc thanks the guests and reminds them that the future is what they make it. The guests leave the Institute as the song Back in Time is played. Outside the Institute there were replicas from the film, such as the hoverboards, as well as one of the modified DeLoreans and the locomotive from the third movie. As I said, the ride was a huge success and a fan favorite. After problems with the construction of the Hollywood version were revised, the California attraction opened in 1993.
Who cares about that?
A Japanese version of the ride opened at Universal Studios Japan. So why did it close? Well, theoretically, the lifespan of the ride was always limited, as they did travel to the future of 2015. So if the ride would have survived long after that, it would have seemed outdated.
We've never seen 2015, though.
In the movies. The actual reason is that Universal wanted to move on to newer franchises, as they did with Jaws and Confrontation and many of their other
I'm glad they kept the Mummy ride, though. That ride's still so good.
Decided to shut down one of the two domes of the ride in 2007, claiming to be looking into future opportunities for it. The ride officially closed in Florida on March 30th, 2007.
Thanks, Prime Slammer and Reset B-Man.
More of a proper send-off,
with
Christopher Lloyd and Bob Gale present at a special event to count down to the ride's closure and give away a DeLorean car. The Hollywood version officially closed on September 3rd, 2007. However, the Japan version of the ride wouldn't close until May 31st, 2016. The Back to the Future rides in the United States would be replaced with the Simpsons ride, a ride that followed a similar cue, plot, and ride experience, this time only themed after The Simpsons. A few notable differences are the move away from Omnimax to overlapping projections, as well as the less jerky, more smooth motion of the ride's cars. Also, the new ride would be completely animated, while Back to the Future's ride filmed used stop-motion animation and models to pull off its effects. The Simpsons rides would officially open
I don't even think I've ever been on the Simpsons ride.
The Japan version of the ride would be replaced with another simulator attraction, Despicable Me Minion Mayhem, which can already be found in the United States parks. The Japanese version of the ride opened in April of 2017.
My God.
While Back to the Future the ride can no longer be found at any Universal Studios park, it does live on in a few ways. One is an incredibly depressing cameo of Doc Brown in the pre-ride video sequence of the Simpsons ride, where he appears attempting to borrow money in a desperate attempt to save the Institute of Future Technology. Another way is the DVD
I appreciate that. Thank you, Nebus.
Sometime around 1993, an employee of the ride recorded the entire attraction, including pre-ride and on-ride footage, and began selling bootlegs of it, some of which can still be found online today. 2 years after the Back to the Future rides closed in the United States, Universal decided it might be a profitable idea to release all of the ride footage on a special version of the Back to the Future film. The released film is unfortunately pretty terrible, because it is cut down or cropped quite a bit from the IMAX version, has lost frames and has flickers, and includes a horrible, inaccurate virtual dashboard of the DeLorean. That said, there are people on the internet attempting to recreate the original IMAX reel, and they are also doing some other interesting things that I'm going to talk about in a moment.
What?
So that is the history of Back to the Future.
Wait, so we have like some serious Back to the Future fans out there.
Question, which is Defunctland a real thing?
They're just rebuilding the entire ride from scratch.
But I want it to be. And I think I found a good way to do this that wouldn't require on how to improve the park. Because this is going to be our park. I mean, you guys...
Oh, this is about the overarching project that he's taking on. Thanks to the resub droid. And the resub party cup.
I'm built differently. I'm built differently.